I've long considered Bourgogne the best steel ship to get. It's very, very good, and it's also unique. There's really no other battleship that you can easily get in the game like it. Low caliber, large number of guns that have a quick reload and decent accuracy. Of course, you're also incredibly fast, concealed really well, and of course, there's a reload booster. This is, of course, one of the nastiest things about the Bourgogne. It can, at certain times, have around a 12-second reload, which is kind of nuts. And that's assuming you don't run Adrenaline Rush and are on low HP. So these broadsides, catching people bow in is incredibly powerful on this ship. I'm constantly looking for broadsides, of course, because of that lower caliber. But people will sometimes turn broadside after you shoot, thinking that, well, you're on a reload. You're a battleship, you got a long reload. Not with the Bourgogne, necessarily, as this Carnot goes flat broadside and dies. And now that we shot, the Prince Ruprecht thinks, oh, he shot, he's got a long reload. So he goes broadside too. And yeah, this is Bourgogne at its very best. Unfortunately, well, the dispersion's not perfect all the time, so we can't get the back-to-back devastating strike. Still a great way to open up the game though, and it shows the real strength that this ship has when dealing with enemies who are stuck bow in and want to turn out. Even without the booster, we are very much reloaded in time to catch the Schlieffen's broadside, and one Citadel. It's not bad. The damage output, of course, is a little lacking per shell, considering these are 380mm guns. So that means no overmatch of 27mm and less than 12,000 alpha damage per shell. So those Citadels don't hurt quite as much as they could with some of the more higher caliber guns at the tier. I don't see this as a major problem though. Along with the low HP pool, these really aren't too big a concern to me, since this ship really isn't designed for tanking. The lower HP pool really doesn't have as much of an effect as I may have initially thought it would have. Since the speed is so good, it's very easy to dodge a lot of incoming fire thanks to the speed and maneuverability, and of course the concealment being so good. You're going to notice in this next sequence here, I'm not going to shoot for extended periods of time, and that is to take the best shot possible. I don't want to just send out salvos willy-nilly and potentially open myself up to getting farmed out by these kiting battleships and cruisers. I want to take a shot that I know is going to have a high chance of doing good damage. And otherwise, I don't really need to shoot, since the enemy team is already being pushed back quite effectively here. Even my presence of just being undetected is enough to deter people from going broadside, since there is that threat of the reload booster. So with this intelligent kind of play in mind, the not constantly firing idea in mind, the downsides of the ship aren't quite as pronounced. The low HP pool, and of course the low caliber of guns. Looking for those broadsides, hunting them out, using the incredible speed and concealment to find those broadside shots. It's very doable in the Bourgogne. Even more so than its counterpart, let's say the Jean Bart. I'm sure a lot of you who have played the game for quite some time may have had the Jean Bart, but those of you that are newer, it's a tier 9 with one less turret and the same kind of reload booster. Perhaps even a little better accuracy as well. But Jean Bart has something, or doesn't have the speed Bourgogne has, meaning it's very difficult to get into the same positions that a Bourgogne can. And that, I think, is the crucial difference for me, and the main reason I don't play the Jean Bart hardly at all now that I have a Bourgogne. It's this speed allowing me to flank even into the very corner of the map, as you can see, and still potentially get out of this situation and back into the fight extremely quickly thanks to the speed. Jean Bart still has a speed boost, but it's not as powerful, and we actually have lower base speed on the Jean Bart as well. So it just isn't as good at repositioning like the Bourgogne is. And something I often talk about when it comes to tier 10 battleships is the idea that overmatch is essentially required to make a battleship viable. And that's not quite true in the case of the Bourgogne. I can see where that could be a little confusing if you've watched some of my previous videos on the smaller caliber battleships at tier 10. It's this speed that really does make up for it. You need to be able to find the broadsides to mitigate that weakness of Overmatch. I just wanted to make sure that's very clear, that even though I do believe Overmatch to be incredibly powerful and extremely important at tier 10 for a battleship, it's less of an issue when you have the capacity to nearly hit 40 knots of speed in a battleship that is concealed quite well. Ships like Vermont, of course, are incredibly slow and then rely on that Overmatch. Yamato is in a similar category. They rely on Overmatch because they can't reposition nearly as quickly. Bourgogne, of course, is the exception. Most of the battleships aren't this quick in this game. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoy it as well. It's a change of pace. It feels different to play than the vast majority of the battleships in the game, thanks to the speed, the reload, and the flexibility that this thing offers. It's much more of a cruiser than most of the other battleships are. And in fact, this ship feels more like a cruiser to me, a battle cruiser, I guess I should say, than ships like the Stalingrad. Stalingrad to me fits more of the battleship-esque role, where your goal is to find a good position, to get some crossfires, make use of the improved pen angles, that kind of thing, and of course tank a little bit, because Stalingrad has nearly the same HP and potentially better armor, depending on where you hit that ship. So having this ship be more of a battle cruiser than a ship like Stalingrad is a little interesting, even though it has the battleship tag. And that's why I think, even if you're not a battleship player specifically, that you would still probably enjoy this ship, because it does play so differently than a traditional battleship. And it's not like it lacks damage or alpha output as well. We did get a dev strike, or near enough, in the first salvo of the game to open it off with a first blood. And even at longer ranges, the ship is certainly capable of dishing out those high alpha strike salvos. It's just that the improved reload really does help to make it feel less like a cumbersome, heavy, clunky battleship. So I've talked probably enough about what the Bourgogne does at this point. This game has started off pretty well, but it's a very close one still. Again, as many of you know, I love these close games. The Goliath, I think, is going to stop behind this island. That's why I aimed a little bit too far back in this case. I didn't quite predict what he was going to do properly, but you notice how the enemy team is gearing up to push into the B cap, and I wanted to be in a little better position to deal with that, being able to use some islands to sustain more constant firing. I don't want to be in the open where I'm going to be constantly spotted and shot at by everyone. In this ship, I do like to use islands to mitigate the number of people firing at me. But we're in a pretty solid position to deal with this push. Take a nice little shot onto the A gear at long range and collect a Citadel and our Confederate award already. Thinking about the cross maps, of course. As many of you know, I love these cross map salvos. This one I don't think is going to go quite according to plan since he's turning out. So we may as well just focus on what's in front of us. And that's a Goliath, which does have enough armor to auto bounce our shells, at least on the upper belt, the belt armor, and the deck armor. So we really have to hit superstructure and his bow if we're going to do anything. As you can see, 6 bounces. That's the difficult part about Overmatch, or the lack of Overmatch on this ship. But for the most part, battleships at this tier have such a massive superstructure that you're going to get 10,000 damage or so at these closer ranges into a superstructure of most battleships at this tier, which, you know, is okay, enough to make the Overmatch not as big a deal if you're dealing with a bow-in target. And for something like a Goliath and a lot of the cruisers at the tier, they're probably going to have some 25 millimeters of armor that you can actually overmatch through like we do there. It's not perfect, but with all the broadsides we have been getting this game, it's pretty good so far. And we're already up to 200,000 damage. This ship collects damage incredibly quickly and is very, very good at supporting a flank, taking the middle of the map. It's just very flexible. I think I've sold you enough on the Bourgogne and its strengths already. So in this case, we're actually going to reposition quickly towards the middle of the map. Our speed boost is up. We finally make use of that last speed boost with the upgrade, as I'll talk about in the build. It does last quite a long time, 3.5 minutes or even more, which is very, very useful for dodging shells and repositioning. You'll also notice I'm out of reload boosters. That is something I really find difficult to do in the Bourgogne unless I've been playing the ship quite a bit. I tend to save it or want to save my reload booster for the perfect moment, and I think I see this in others as well. When I watch some of my friends play on Twitch, that kind of thing, the reload booster is something that a lot of us really want to maximize and get the most value out of. And I know for myself, I often end games with a bunch of reload boosters remaining, meaning that is just free damage left on the table. So being very easy to use, I think, is a good thing on the Bourgogne. Use that reload booster as much as you possibly can, and it still works out in the late game, even if you don't have a reload booster remaining. As we're going to see, this push here, well, it really is about the cleanup here. I think we got this game pretty well in hand. We're ahead on points, caps have now evened out, and the enemy team is making their last little push in to try and take out our team, but it's not going so well. The Ruprecht goes down, and now we have a Minnesota and a Thunderer to deal with. With this push, I actually have managed to block the Thunderer from getting my broadside, I hope, with this island, so I really don't have much to worry about giving broadside to him to try and take out this Minnesota. Now, it's not always when you get a broadside with this ship that you're going to do good damage. As you can see in this video alone, I've had some pretty bad dispersion. But it certainly worked out that time, and when these shells connect, they actually have very good pen. And we just miss out on another devastating strike. So nearly had 2 dev strikes in this game, and it's just the Thunderer left to clean up for us here. So 281,000 damage, 3 kills, high caliber Confederate. That's a really, really good game. And Bourgogne tends to have a lot of these games since it is such a flexible ship and great in a lot of different situations. 291,000 actually, with that hit we had into the superstructure of the Thunderer. If you see a battleship that's angled and you don't have overmatch, just shoot that superstructure. It's very, very good damage. So the build I like to run on this ship is a all-around battleship build. Really, it is to maximize this ship's strengths, and that starts with Gunfeeder. The HE is really, really good on this ship and can definitely burn down battleships incredibly well. And that's why I like to run Gunfeeder, allowing me to swap to that HE a little bit quicker. However, I do think Bourgogne is best played with an AP focus. I think you're leaving a little something on the table if you're just shooting HE most of the time. Grease the gears really helps considering how maneuverable this ship is, and repositioning is pretty common, so swapping the turrets from side to side a little quicker is very, very nice. Adrenaline Rush, the reload, got to get that up there. And then, you know, the pretty standard tank concealment stuff for a battleship. As for the equipment, this is also pretty standard, I would say, outside of maybe the steering gears mod. With the speed boost, I find I have the acceleration I need to when I want to be dodging. And since the concealment is so good, and I don't really want to be tanking a ton of HE and fire damage, I don't run damage control. I try to position myself in a way where I'm not going to be eating a fire constantly. So running steering gears to mitigate some of that more long-range firepower is very nice. The ship is very difficult to hit at outside of 15, 18 kilometers, that kind of thing, with the speed boost up and this steering gears module. It's very, very tough to do. Reload, of course, and here is the engine boost mod. Of course, if you don't have it, it's okay, but having that really long duration, 15% speed boost is very, very nice. Bourgogne is awesome. I've always enjoyed this ship, and I think it still is my recommendation for a steel ship. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.